Let's talk about one of the most powerful, but honestly, one of the most ignored tools you have as an investor. It's called rebalancing. And I know, it sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry. But what if I told you that not doing this one simple thing is like letting a silent thief sneak into your portfolio and drain your wealth year after year? Yeah, that got your attention. Okay, let's get into it. So take a look at this number, 77%. Just let that sink in for a second. It's a huge number, right? But what does it mean? Well, it's the percentage of everyday investors who made a really critical mistake during one of the wildest market moments we've seen in a long time. Yep, that's right. A Vanguard study found that when the market went into a nosedive back in early 2020, over 3/4 of regular investors just froze. They didn't panic and sell everything, which is good, but they also didn't do anything else. They just sat there and watched as the investment mix they so carefully chose drifted way, way off course. And that inaction, that doing nothing, that's what we're digging into today. Which brings us to our first big idea. We're calling this problem the silent wealth killer. And for good reason. It's sneaky, it works in the background, quietly messing with your financial goals, and you might not even notice it's happening until it's way too late. You know, we can actually put a price tag on this neglect. The folks at Morningstar call it the behavior gap, and their research shows that it costs the average investor about 1.7% in returns every single year. Think about that. That's the tax you pay for letting your emotions, or just plain old inertia, get in the way of a smart strategy. So how does this whole silent killer thing actually work? Well, its main weapon is something called portfolio drift. Let's actually watch how a perfectly reasonable, safe-ish portfolio can turn into a high-risk gamble, all while you're just living your life, not paying attention. Okay, so let's say you start out with the classic 60-40 portfolio. 60% in stocks for that nice growth, 40% in bonds to keep things stable. This is your target, your comfort zone. It's the exact risk level you decided you were cool with. Everything is perfectly balanced, just how you planned it. Now let's fast forward just 3 years. Imagine the stock market has had a pretty good run, which it often does. You haven't touched a thing, but look what happened. Your safe 60-40 portfolio is now almost 70% stocks. Your risk level has quietly crept up, and you're now taking on way more risk than you originally signed up for. And after 5 years, wow. Look at that. That same portfolio is now 73% stocks and only 27% bonds. You started out with a moderate plan, but without realizing it, you're now running an aggressive, high-risk portfolio. You are completely set up for a much bigger, much more painful shock the next time the market takes a tumble. All because you did nothing. This all seems so simple on paper, right? The danger seems obvious. So why is just letting things ride the default setting for so many of us? Well, the answer isn't in some complicated financial formula. It's inside our own heads. Our brains are basically hardwired with these little glitches that make rebalancing feel totally unnatural. There's something called loss aversion, which means selling our winning stocks feels like a loss, and it hurts. Then there's recency bias, which tricks us into thinking that whatever's hot right now is going to be hot forever. And finally, the endowment effect. This is where we get weirdly attached to the stocks we own just because we own them. All these psychological traps work together to paralyze us.
So if our own brains are working against us, how in the world do we fight back against portfolio drift? Simple. We need a system, something automatic, something disciplined that takes our faulty human emotions right out of the driver's seat. And that system, my friends, is rebalancing.
The idea itself is just beautifully simple. All rebalancing means is that on a regular basis, you sell a little bit of what's done really well and buy a little bit of what hasn't. That's it. You're just trimming the winners and adding to the laggards to get everything back to your original plan. Back to that 60-40 sweet spot we talked about. But this one simple action does 3 incredibly powerful things for you. First, and most obviously, it manages your risk. It keeps you from accidentally ending up with that crazy 73-27 portfolio. Second, it forces you to do what every investor dreams of: buy low and sell high. I mean, think about it. You're automatically selling stocks after they've had a great run and buying bonds when they're on sale. And third, and this is absolutely critical, it protects retirees from something called sequence of returns risk. That's just a fancy way of saying it protects you from a huge market crash right when you need your money the most. For someone near retirement, this isn't just a good idea, it's a potential lifesaver. Okay, so you get it. You're sold on the why. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. How do you actually do this stuff smartly? The good news is, it doesn't have to be some big, complicated chore. Let's break down a few simple rules of the road. This is probably the number one question everybody has. Should I be in there tinkering every month, every quarter, every day? It feels like being more active should get you better results, but the actual data, well, it tells a very different and, frankly, a much more relaxing story. So here's the kicker. Research from Vanguard, looking at like 80 years of market data, found that rebalancing once a year gives you almost the exact same return as doing it every single month. The difference was basically nothing. But by doing it less often, you create fewer taxable events and pay way less in fees. So in this case, doing more work isn't just not better, it's actually worse for your bottom line. Now, if you want to be a little more strategic, there's another great option, threshold rebalancing. So instead of just looking at the calendar, you let the market tell you when it's time to act. A really common rule is to rebalance any time one part of your portfolio drifts more than, say, 5% away from its target. This way, you're taking action when it actually matters, not just because it's Tuesday. And here's the best part, really, the pro tip of the day. For a lot of us, you can rebalance without ever having to pay a dime in taxes. The absolute smartest way is to just use your new contributions, the money you're already investing, to buy more of whatever asset is lagging behind. You don't have to sell anything. Or, even easier, just do all your buying and selling inside a retirement account, like your IRA or 401k. Inside those accounts, you can trade all you want with zero tax consequences. All right, we've talked about the problem, the psychology that makes it worse, and the simple, elegant solution. So let's wrap this all up. Here is your dead, simple, 3-step action plan to take back control and defeat that silent wealth killer for good. First, seriously, as soon as this is over, go log in and check your portfolio. Just see how far things have drifted. I bet you'll be surprised. Second, pick one simple rule and write it down. It could be, I will rebalance on my birthday every year, or I'll rebalance when things get 5% out of whack. Just make a rule. And third, this is the magic step, automate it. Most brokerages these days will do this for you automatically. Set it once and let the robots take your emotions out of the picture forever. Look, at the end of the day, successful investing isn't about having a crystal ball. It's not about picking the next big thing. It's about what this quote says. Success comes from having a disciplined plan and sticking with it, especially when it's hard. Rebalancing is that plan. It's boring, it's systematic, and it is the single most effective way to protect and grow your money over the long term. So, what's your rule going to be?